Hi, welcome to the 21st episode of the New England Gal Knits podcast. I am Janet and I live in Massachusetts with my husband, our two boys, our cat, and our dog. If you're a returning viewer, a welcome back, and if you're a new viewer, a welcome to the podcast. I hope you enjoy it. You can find me on Ravelry and Instagram at the New England Gal. In full disclosure, my Ravelry page has not been updated in quite a while. I need to spend some time this weekend taking photos and updating that page. We'll get there. Also, we do have a group for this podcast under the New England Gal Knits podcast, and I am hosting my first knit along, the Summertime Top Cal, and that is wrapping up relatively soon. It's going to be July 15th, and it is knitting or crocheting any top, t-shirt, tank top, a summer garment. So if you're working on something, go over and check that out. Also, if you want to share your progress on Instagram, use the hashtag SummertimeTopCal. I'd love to see what you're working on. So today, it's July 6th, so anybody watching from the United States, I hope you had a wonderful 4th of July. And anyone watching from Canada, happy Canada Day. I believe that was July 1st, so I hope you all enjoyed your time off and had a great time. I know I had a nice relaxing time with my family. Went over my parents' house, and my aunt and my brother and his wife and their brand new baby. They had a baby on Monday. With that being said, I have not gotten a whole lot of knitting done this week because it's been holding a baby week. Can't knit when you're holding a baby. So they came over my parents' house, and it was a just nice, relaxing day spent. I have a feeling this might be a little bit of a rambly episode. I am procrastinating. I've decided I need to start working out again. It's been about a year since I've worked out. I worked out yesterday, and I have to say, it was a little rough going. I did a lot of push-ups, and my arms and my shoulders are very sore. So I am trying to put off working out as long as possible. On top of that, it is very hot and very sticky out. I think most of the country has been through a heat wave this week. We have been between 90 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 32 to 37 degrees Celsius. So it's been a tad bit warm, and we do have central air conditioning in our house. However, we just put in a Nest thermostat, and we had it set to the energy save mode. Well, I guess it just wants to put it to 79 degrees, which is still quite warm and sticky, and I have my iced tea I'm drinking on because it is quite warm in here. So I think I've rearranged it now that it should be working and going down to at least 74 degrees and cooling off in here. So hopefully soon, and then at least if it's cool in here, maybe I'll be a little bit more motivated to work out after that. We'll see. So I don't have any finished objects. As I said, this week there hasn't been a whole lot of knitting time because it's baby holding time. On top of that, it's just been too hot, and I just haven't felt like having knits laying on me as I'm working on them. So I have made some progress on some of my works in progress, and I should have had more done on 2 of the projects. However, I made some boo-boos, and I've had to rip out. And one of the projects, I made no boo-boos, and I ripped out anyways, which I'll get to in a little bit when I show that project. But let me start with, I'm going to start with my socks. So my first work in progress, these, it's being housed, and the majority of these are being housed in drawstring bags that I had sewn. And I used a tutorial from the blog in colored order, and I'll link the post down below if you're interested in checking it out. But these are my Speckled Space Socks by Amanda Stevens. And this is my second one here. And I had mentioned before, I am loving this knit. However, I was done more of the leg than this. And I dropped the stitch right here in the middle, and it went through the cabling. And I could not for the life of me figure out how to finagle. There's some yarn overs and some cabling, and I just could not figure out how to pick up that one stupid stitch. So I ended up ripping back about an inch and starting over. So I am hoping that I can get this done this weekend if I really put my mind to it. I have the finished one here, and there's only one pattern repeat on the leg, and I'm about a third done of it, so hopefully, like I said, I can get this done this weekend. I am knitting this out of Artistic Lilly's 80/20 base, and this is in her Baby Light My Fire color. I love her yarn. I love her colors. I've mentioned it before. I've knit a sweater out of her yarn, and I have another skein that I'm trying to figure out what to do with. There's a couple shawls by Suzanne Summers that I'm trying to decide whether or not I can fit that skein of yarn into. We'll see. But I am enjoying this. I'll be sad to see it done, but at the same time, I think I started these in February. It's about time they get off the needles and into my box of socks. For my second work in progress, these are my vanilla socks. I have to say they have not seen a lot of love. My vanilla socks I normally work on at the bus stop. Well, with it being summer, there's been no bus stop knitting, and there has not been a lot of car knitting if we've gone somewhere. The majority of the time I've been driving. On Sunday, I dropped my older son off at Boy Scout camp. My husband was working, so I had to drive, and it's about a 45-minute drive. So I spent most of the day in the car, driving him up there. We had stopped for lunch somewhere, and then I dropped him off and drove home. So I haven't had a lot of chances to work on these, but I am working on vanilla socks knit out of the Woolen Cat, all tangled, in her Midnight Margarita color, and I am knitting these concurrently. I had mentioned in my last podcast that I wasn't too sure if I was going to do these as shorty socks or if I was going to do these as full-length socks, and I have decided to knit these full length. And my full length are normally I will knit until I get to the length of the toe, and then I'll throw the cuff in. But I figured I normally, after I finish a full-size sock, have anywhere from 48 to 50 grams of yarn left, which is enough for a pair of shorty socks, especially if I decide to do contrasting heels, which I think I will do. I'll have plenty left to eventually knit a pair of shorties out of these as well. So here is the cake. I love the color. I admit I purchased it solely based off of the name. I love anything to do with margaritas, but I am so pleased with the way these are coming out. I just need to find more time to knit on them. So for my third work in progress, I have my Sunset Highway pullover, and this is by Caitlin Hunter, and it's being housed in my Fringe Supply Company bag. And excuse the very ridiculous and obnoxiously long cord. The body, it's all tangled. The body is on. I've been trying it on as I go with the sleeve because I want to make sure I get the sleeve long enough. So I am almost done the sleeve. I should have been done by now. So with this one, my youngest son and I have been binge watching Stranger Things, and I was working on this section of the color work while we were watching it. I don't know what I was thinking. It was about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, which is on the later side for me. I get up at 4:30 in the morning, so I like to be in bed by 9 o'clock. But I'm looking at the color work and I'm looking at the chart and I'm like, I messed up on this. And I literally ripped back all of the color work. And then I looked again and realized I didn't mess up on any of it. So I pulled out all the work I had done for no reason at all. And then, this is going in a timeout when I'm done this podcast. I somehow managed to drop a stitch in the cable, and you can kind of, in the ribbing, you can kind of see it. I don't know how well. You can kind of see it right in here. I picked it up, but I think I missed a few rows, or at least one row, so I have to go back and drop down and re-pick up the stitches. And honestly, between the speckled space sock, ripping out the color work of the sleeve, and then dropping the stitch, I haven't been really motivated to knit lately. I love the colors, I love the yarn that I'm using, and I guess I should show you and tell you what I'm using. For the body, I am using 100 Raven yarn, and this is in their Jon Snow color. For the color work, the blue is a Periwinkle sheep, and this is in her sport weight based in the Thunderstorm color. The wine color is Cordial. The color name is Cordial, and this is by Knit Picks in the Stroll base. And then my last color that I am working on is this is Moonstone Dyeworks in her Crescent Moon on her BFL base. And I love this color. I've used it in another shawl. I'm hoping to get a pair of socks out of this as well because I love this color and I love her yarn. That is the Sunset Highway. And then I have one more work in progress to share, and this is my second entry into the Summertime Top Cal. I'm not gonna have it done. I did do a little t-shirt out of Madeline Tosh in her, I'm blanking on the name now, Radness colorway. I think I had shared it about 3 episodes back. I may have posted it to Ravelry. I don't know. That's one of the things I need to look at. Anyways, my second entry in the last work in progress I'm going to show is the Tegna pullover, and this is by Caitlin Hunter. Again, I am obsessed with her, and I just picked up yarn for the Tecumseh sweater, which I'll share when it comes in. Madeline Tosh was having a sale, 30% off for 4th of July, so I picked up some yarn for it. I love her patterns. I haven't managed to make it through the lace. I had mentioned in my last podcast I was struggling with the lace. I'm not a huge fan of knitting lace. It has to be the right project and I have to be in the right mindset. I had, for whatever reason, this hand had been bothering me, and there's a couple knit for togethers, and I was really struggling with those rows for whatever reason. But I've made it through, and now I'm in stockinette, so I'll throw in maybe a couple movies this weekend and just knit away on this. I am knitting this out of yarn I had dyed myself. And the base is, it is a 20% mohair, 55% merino, and 25% nylon. I love the way this color is coming out. I am alternating every other row on this. I don't know how well the camera can pick it up. Even though these were dyed in the same pot, this one came out a lot lighter than this one. And I think alternating every other row is really blending them in well together. I'm very pleased because I was a little nervous about how they were going to look together because I feel like it's a drastic difference. However, I am very happy with the way it is looking. So I won't have it done for July 15th, but it's too hot to wear it anyways. Hopefully I'll have it done for August. That is it for my works in progress. I did do a little bit of dyeing on the 4th of July. I had the pack I had bought with the bare yarn that was the mohair merino nylon blend. It came with 5 and I had dyed up 3 in the color that I had wanted my Tegna in. I don't know if I'll need all 3, but I wanted to make sure I had enough just in case, but it meant I had 2 skeins that I could play around with. So the first one, I wanted to play around with speckles because I hadn't really done a whole lot of speckling. So this one I just left the natural base and I had speckled it with yellow and with brown dye, but there's some blues and greens. I'm hoping that the colors are showing up. Well, I am pleased with the way this came out. I love this. I have no idea what I'm gonna do with these yet. I'll figure it out. No yarn goes to waste in this house. Then the second skein I had dyed, what I had done was I dyed it a light gray and then threw some purple, red, and green speckles on it. And I am very pleased with the way this came out. It's funny, my mom, everyone I've shown likes this one best. However, I adore this one. I'm very happy with both of them and I can't wait to use them. And that is it for dyeing. Actually, along the topic of dyeing, I am very excited. My dad is going to build me a warping board. My dad is very handy and very good with woodworking, and I have been looking at warping boards for a while because I would love to do self-striping yarn. I love knitting socks out of self-striping yarn, and I'm like, how great would it be to knit up my own? But I just hadn't wanted to spend the money because I look at the warping boards and I'm like, the material for them isn't that expensive. So I was showing my dad. My dad found a YouTube video and he's like, I can do one. So he's hoping to have it done for me by the end of this summer, but he has a couple other woodworking projects he wants to get done first. But I am very excited about that and can't wait to share that with you when that's done. That is it, and that's all I have to talk about for dyeing. So I did pick up a couple things over the last few weeks. I had been watching Fibertail podcast as well as Squirrel Pie Productions podcast, and they were both knitting out of Retrosaria yarn, the modem base, which is it's 100% Portuguese wool, but it's a sock yarn. And I fell in love with the colors they were both using. So I ended up, Tolt Yarn sells Retrosaria yarn. So I ended up picking up 2 skeins. And I picked up, the top one is color 208 and the bottom one is 207. And I love the colors on these. Tommy from Squirrel Pie Productions was knitting this particular color and I just fell in love with the way it knit up. I'm hoping I get the same gauge because I love the way her socks look. We'll see. But it is 100% Portuguese wool, so there is no nylon in it. However, it feels like a nice sturdy yarn, so I don't have any problem with knitting socks out of these. I did pick up, and I don't know if I'm going to use it, I had a 30% off coupon from Michaels, so I went and I had picked up the Lion Brand Sock Ease yarn, which is a 75-25% wool nylon. And I think this would work well for the heel and possibly the toes. I also, while I was at Michael's, had also picked up just a Patton's Croy in their black, I think they call it, yeah, coal color, which again, it's just a nice color to have for heels and toes. Then I somehow got roped into knitting my younger brother a pair of socks, which I wouldn't mind doing, except for he's a size 14 US in shoes, and his feet are quite large. However, I couldn't say no to him. He's my baby brother. I picked up, and then too, it's when you're knitting socks that big, it takes 2 skeins of yarn. My twin brother knits, and he has to buy 2 skeins of yarn for a pair of socks for him, and he's about a size 13. So I ended up going on to Knit Picks and picking up Felici in their ice cream truck color. He saw this color, he wanted blues and purples and whites, and this is what he had picked out. So I picked up 4 of these. I've been doing a lot of math, trying to figure out how large to make them. I think I figured out on a US 1.5 with my gauge on a 1.5, I'll have to do 76 stitches. And I have to knit an extra 6 inches on the sock. So an extra 3 inches in the foot and an extra, I like to have my legs and my feet to be the same length, so it'll be an extra 3 inches on the leg as well. I told him I'd have them done for Christmas, so I need to start these right away. I can't wait for school to start back up so I can get my vanilla sock knitting on, because it's gonna probably take me quite a while, and you guys will see these many times on the podcast. I may even just cast them on at some point next week just to get them going. I will do a drop heel and gusset. I like the Afterthought heel, but I have a narrower instep. Can you tell I'm from New England and can't pronounce my R's? Anyways, his instep is much bigger, so I think the drop heel and gusset will be best for him. I will use this again for the heel. I should have plenty that I don't have to do the toe or the cuff in a contrasting color. I should have plenty. So that's going to be my big project for my big-footed brother. And of course, because I couldn't just purchase for one project off of Knit Picks, they ended up having a sale when I was on there, and this skein of Hawthorne was on sale, and this is their sherbet, I think it's a sherbet speckle colorway, which is orange and hot pink and green. This will end up being probably a pair of socks for my younger son. I haven't quite decided yet. That's it for the yarn. However, I have one more thing that I did pick up. I ended up on Etsy picking up this little, sorry about that, the dog's looking for my attention. He's been fed, he's been out, I don't know what his problem is. I ended up picking up this little fabric yarn bowl by Laughing Stitches. I saw this print and I absolutely fell in love. We have a farmer's market close to us that always sells wildflowers, and they always display them in glass jars, so this just screamed summer to me. And it has this pretty green lining with flower names on it. I can't wait to use this. I figure this would be nice just to have sitting on next to me on the couch to keep my cakes of yarn from rolling around. And again, it's from Laughing Stitches, and she's on Etsy, and here is her card. That is all. I'm not gonna say that is all I've purchased for yarn, because I have other things being shipped to me that I'm waiting to come. After saying I'm not purchasing anymore, I have plenty. Not that yarn goes to waste, especially sock yarn. I knit a lot of socks, so I don't feel bad about buying it because I go through my stash at a decent rate. But I had picked up yarn from Madeline Tosh for the Tecumseh sweater by Caitlin Hunter because she had a 30% off sale. I also was sucked into the Indie Dyer collaboration, and this was all started by the Countess Ablaze. And check out her Instagram for kind of what went behind this. But she called out to indie dyers to copy or come up with their own version of her yarn called If I Want Exposure, I'll Get My Tits Out. Anyways, she then asked that those that copied it to donate a certain amount of their profit to charities. So I ended up purchasing 2 skeins of that, one from a Woolen Vine and one from Speckled Finch Fibers. So when those come in, I'll share those with you, and I'll obviously share the yarn also for my Tecumseh sweater. I don't think I have anything else coming in. We'll see. So as of what's been going on, 2 weeks ago, my younger son was in a tennis camp and he loved it, which is great because he's normally, other than video games, and he likes Cub Scouts. He does draw a lot, but there's not a whole lot of things he's interested in, especially athletic-wise, because he could sit and draw all day or play video games all day, but when you tell him to go play outside, he's not a fan of it. So he loved tennis, which is fabulous. So I'm hoping to look at getting him into maybe a tennis camp this fall. I know the Y, I think, has some. So I'll check that out. I'm just excited he's actually interested in something else besides the video games. A few weeks ago, he had said to me that he was going to, when he grows up, live in our basement and play video games too, which I think the actual words out of my mouth were, oh hell no. So we've been spending a lot of time with, if you love video games, there's graphic design and video game designers, and we're going through all these options for him that he may be interested in because he's not living in my basement the rest of his life. I love my children, I love having them around, but I want them to move out and have their own lives and families when they grow up, and I do not want them living in my basement. This week, my older son is at Boy Scout camp. We're picking him up tomorrow morning, and please keep your fingers crossed that we can manage the ride home. I love my son, and I've missed him, but he is a 13-year-old boy. I'm hoping this is typical of a 13-year-old boy. He doesn't like to shower. I am hands down will bet that he has not showered at all this week. I'm hoping he's at least brushed his teeth a couple times. We've sent him with deodorant. I don't think it'll have been used. We'll see. The ride home, it's like windows are down, sunroof is open, and we're holding our breath and praying that we can make it home without gagging on the smell. But I'll be happy to have him home, and I think he's having a great time there. Normally there's a parent night, however there wasn't one this week. I'm not quite sure why. So we haven't seen him, but they have been posting photos online, so he looks like he's having a great time, and he looks like he's truly happy being there, which is great because he's going back in 2 weeks. This week he didn't go with his Boy Scout troop. He just went with a couple of friends as a provisional camper. He's being very ambitious this summer. He's working on getting 11 merit badges. He's signed up for 6 this week. We'll see if he's gotten all 6. You know what, even if he gets 2 or 3, that's still great. So I can't wait to see him tomorrow and hear about everything he's done. And last weekend, So last weekend I went out and I bought a new watch, my Apple Watch. The glass came unsealed. I don't know what happened. I had called Apple. Normally with the phones in my Mac computer, you can take them to Apple and they fix them in the store, or they'll tell you what's wrong and they'll ship it away. They don't do that with the watch. You have to call on the watch. You have to then ship it to them. They have to put a hold on your credit card for something very close to the price of a new watch, and it may cost up to that to get it repaired. And I was kind of like, well, if it's gonna cost me that much to get it repaired, I'm not sending it away. I'd rather just get a new one. But at this point, $250 is just a lot of money. So I'm like, I'm just gonna get a battery in my watch, in one of my old watches, and live with that for the time being. It's nice to have the Apple Watch, but not a necessity. So while we went to a Fossil outlet, because they normally do my battery changes for me, which it must have been a while since I've had a battery change, because it's $50 to change a battery on a watch. But while we were at Fossil, they have their own smartwatches, and they have two versions. One's close to the Apple Watch with the touch screen, and those are $275, but then they have this hybrid one, and they had a couple on sale for $70. So I decided to give that a try, and this is what I have. I love the face is nice and big, and I swear I'm going blind, so it's easy to read. So it looks like a normal watch, but it will vibrate in the hands. Like for instance, I have my husband set up, if he calls or texts, the hands will move to one, so I'll know it's him. And it's also keeping track of my steps. So I'm really enjoying it right now, and for the $70 compared to the $200, it does what I needed to do. The Apple Watch, I didn't use all the features. I didn't use it to make phone calls or texts, because honestly, if I'm gonna say do a voice text, my phone's right there, and I'm just gonna do a voice text through my phone. So this is perfect, and it does what I needed to do. So I'm very happy with that. But while we were at the mall, there's a David's Tea there, and I love David's Tea iced tea. So I've picked up a couple while I was there. I picked up their spicy peanut margarita iced tea, which is what I'm currently drinking. That's delicious. I wouldn't call it taste like a margarita. It has a lot of ginger in it, but I love ginger, so that's really good. And then I picked up their peach Mai Tai, which is a black tea peach iced tea, and I love black peach flavored black tea. So I picked that up, and then I picked up the mermaid, I don't remember, mermaid something. I'll leave it down below. But I picked that up as well, and I had that one before and love it, so I can't wait to brew that up. I love drinking iced tea in the summer, so it was just perfect timing to go down there and pick those up. And then on Monday, my brother and my sister-in-law had their baby, a little girl, and I'm not gonna share pictures of the name or anything like that. I just feel like that's their job to do in their privacy, and I'm not gonna put that all out on social media. But my youngest son and I went to visit them at the hospital on Monday evening, and it was funny because we were all kind of like, Ryan was insistent he wanted to come, and just like, he's gonna be bored. It's all just sitting there and holding a baby and the adults talking. Nope, he is so smitten with her. She's just as peanut. She's like 6 pounds, 2 ounces. Both my boys were over 8 pounds, and it's amazing what a 2 pound difference is for babies. But she's just this little peanut, and he sat there and he talked to her and held her. We had to wrestle her away from him, but he would sit there and he was talking about all the video games he was gonna teach her, and he was gonna teach her to play tag, and he was teaching her math, and we were talking about the time, so he was telling her all about how to tell time, which none of it she understood, and she slept the whole entire time he was holding him. While he was holding her, but it was just the cutest thing, and he is just so in love with her already. And then my older son is going to be so upset when he gets home and realizes he's missed it. So we've got a plan this weekend at some point to go over there and let him see her and meet her. We'll see. You know how it is with the Thai parents, where you kind of, there's a point where you just kind of want to be left alone to try and settle. We quickly ran over. I made them a tray of enchiladas just so they had stuff for dinner and they didn't have to worry about cooking. I remember I had a friend who made me a huge thing of shepherd's pie, and it was just so nice to know I could just throw something in the microwave and dinner was done and I didn't have to cook anything, because you are so, those first few months, so exhausted. So I figured they would appreciate having that. And my enchiladas are my brother's favorite. He was really appreciative of that. That is it, which has been plenty of excitement. So that is all I have for this podcast. I hope you all have a great 2 weeks ahead. And actually, before I let you go, just remember the knit along ends July 15th. So I will announce the winner on the next podcast. Last time I checked, there were no entries. So if you have completed a tank or a t-shirt, go on over, get your entry in. I am allowing whips, so even if you started it before the, I think it was June 1st date, that's fine. Go ahead, get that entered, and I'll announce that at the next podcast in 2 weeks. And I hope you all have a great few weeks ahead, and happy knitting. Bye.